Good afternoon. This is Rachel with Infused Meadows, and for dinner I'm making potato soup. And this is my recipe. I've been working this recipe for a couple of years, trying to get it to what I think is perfect. It's not quite there, but it's better than it started out being. So I'm going to share with you what I have. In that pot, I have boiled 1 pound of potatoes. They are fork tender. When you poke them, they fall apart, which means they're good to go because we're going to be mashing those to make potato soup. Right here, I have 1 cup of freshly grated cheddar cheese. It is not firmly packed. I have a third a cup of not quite finely chopped onions, but chopped onions. A third a cup of flour. A third a cup of unsalted butter. 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic. That was 2 garlic cloves. And in this, I have a spice mix that I have put together that I think works well with potatoes. Now, if you don't have everything, then there's some things that you can just leave out. Like, for example, this is dehydrated and ground ancho powder. Well, it's not really powder. It's more like just a fine grind. Anyway, I add this to my mix. I find that it gives it just a nice little background of a tiny smoke amount. So it's a little smoky, but it's a background. It is not in your face, so no worry. And it's a natural, like I said, slightly smoky flavor, which I like. And then I have some things for some heat, like cayenne. Not a lot. Actually, the amount of cayenne that I use in this is more as a flavor enhancer rather than for heat. So let me tell you what I have in this bowl. This is my spice mix. I have 3/4 a teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of pepper. I use black pepper. 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, a 1/2 teaspoon of ancho powder, 1/2 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1 1/2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 3/4 a teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/2 teaspoon oregano, a 1/2 teaspoon of basil, and a 1/4 a teaspoon of ground thyme. Now, like I said, if there's something that you don't have, don't use it. I would not leave out salt and pepper. That is your food and your flavor enhancers there for your potatoes at the very least. So over here, I also have 4 cups of milk, 1 cup of chicken broth, and I have some of my dried green onions that I'm just going to sprinkle across the top. We'll say about, the last 5 minutes that it's cooking. Alright, so I'm going to get things kind of going, and I don't feel like everybody needs to see everything. I'm going to drain these, and I'm going to mash them and get them into another bowl, and we'll be back. Okay, so I've mashed my potatoes. And then to that, I'm going to pour some of my milk in here because I'm going to have this setting for just a little bit. And I do not want those potatoes to turn rock hard. So we just mash in some of our milk. And I do it like this because it's potato soup. Those few little chunks that get through of the potato, I think it adds something to the soup. But if you want these creamier, feel free to use your hand mixer, or you could use your stand mixer if you just really wanted to clean up that kind of mess with it, but you do you. Okay, so these are fine. And now I'm going to get over here, so I'm going to pause and move you over. In my pot, I have my 1/3 cup of butter melted, and I'm going to go ahead and put in my onion. And we're going to cook these just until they're translucent. And once that's done, we'll be adding in our flour. Okay. This will take, 2 to 3 minutes. And then we'll be back. Okay, now that my onions are ready, I'm going to put in my flour. And I'm going to move this around. We're creating like a roux. And with the onions in here with it, you have a smaller chance of lumps. So what I want to do is I want to cook off the raw flour taste. So I'm going to do this for about a minute. Just stirring the whole time, moving that flour around. I don't want to burn it. I just want it to, like I said, cook off that raw flour taste and golden up a little bit in color. If you hear that, that is my doorbell. I do apologize. It is picking up whatever motion out there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add my spice mix into this, and I want to toast the seasonings for just a couple more seconds. We'll say maybe, 30-ish. And now that I have that nice and combined, I'm going to slowly add, I'm going to go for my chicken broth first actually. Basically 2 batches. Now we're going to add our milk. I apologize, this might be right in your way. I like spices. I like seasoning, flavor. I'm not much of a bland person. So if this seems like too much for you, feel free to cut it back to just your onion powder, garlic powder, salt, pepper. I would still do that little bit of cayenne and the little bit of ancho if you have the ancho. It's just what I would do. And you can leave out the oregano, basil, and thyme if you just, don't want to, don't like it. Whatever your preferences are there. And yes, I could pause for some of this, but this way you see, how quickly this comes together. Okay, so we have our milk in here. Mashed potatoes are going in now. Some people use some people use baked potatoes. You can do that. It's faster on the stove, and I don't really see a seasoning perk. I mean, you're still gonna cook the potatoes the way you prefer, and you're still gonna mash them. So you do you on that one. If you want to use the fake potatoes from the store, I can't tell you how to do that. So I'm sorry, I don't know how. little squeak, sorry. So I'm going to get this to where it just starts to bubble. I do not want to boil. But as this cooks, it is going to thicken up. And so what I'm fixing to go ahead and add my garlic in, because now is a good time for that. And if you've seen anything else I've made, you know that I add the garlic towards the end, because I do not like my garlic burned or overcooked in any way, shape, or form. Yes, I realize dead silence. I do apologize. I focus on what I'm doing, which is why I don't personally I don't plan to ever put myself in the video. If you want me to be completely honest, it's not about me. It's about what I make, and in hopes that, you make it, you like it. And as I've told you in all the other videos, if you don't like it, then I honestly hope that you find the recipe out there that's right for you. In today's time, there's not a lot of cook from scratch people. I'm not that old. I guess it's all in the eyes of the beholder. I'm 46. And some may see that as old, some may see that not as old. But it's all on how I was raised. And, my mama, she rarely ever cooks anything from a box. She is from scratch girl too, as is my mama, who, yes, is still running around. My mama still does everything. She even still cans. So it's just what we do. It's just, it's all on how you're raised, I guess, or what you want to seek out knowledge-wise for yourself. So when you're looking for things that are from scratch, like I said, it comes down to flavors, and we're all different. Some people like things bland, some people like things full of flavor, people like things just spicy. We're all different, and that's where you need to look at the seasoning mix that's in something and say, you know what, I like half of that, and then just start there. It's the kitchen. So I hate to say you do you, but that's what I say all the time, because I'm not good with recipes. I never have been. I am, however, good at hearing something and thinking, ooh, that sounds really good. Let's go create. And that, I think, is the best thing that you can do. As long as you understand the basics of being in a kitchen and the basics of what your own flavor palette is, you are free to try anything. Just start creating, You go in there and you think, well, I know I want chicken and I want pasta. And now you stop and think, okay, well, what do I want with that chicken and that pasta? We're going to add our cheese in. And then, like I said, from there, you add your chicken. Obviously, your pasta it doesn't generally cook with your chicken unless you've got it in a, your own little broth mix, whether it be chicken broth or chicken broth with cream of mushroom or, whatever you like. You just start creating. And you'd be amazed where that can take you. I love being in the kitchen. I always have. I think that it is just great. So, that little rant over. I do apologize if, seemed like a rant. It wasn't meant for one. Anyway, so what we're going to do now is we're going to stir our cheese in until it is nice and melted and combined. And then we're going to let this set for just a little bit. And then get ready to serve. Actually, because I almost forgot, let's add in a nice sprinkle of green onion. And this is so, because they're dried, this is so that they'll soften in this. So I don't make my soup so thick that you can stand a spoon up in it. But it won't run through a sieve. Well, any soup will run through a sieve, so that was silly. Anyway, it's not so thick you can stand a spoon up in it, but it is a nice creamy potato soup. And feel free to add some cornbread or some rolls, or just eat it as is. You can even make the little bread bowls and then, you know, hollow them out and put your soup inside of that and eat them that way. But this is thickening up. Anyways, this is going to be a longer video than I expected to make, and I do apologize for that. So what you want to do is here in a few minutes, I'm going to turn the heat off. And when I do that, I'm going to let this set for at least 10 minutes before I, you know, touch it to serve. Now, if you have leftovers, what I generally do is I store this in an airtight container with plastic wrap that's been pushed down onto the top of your soup once it's cooled off. Because just like pudding, potato seems to create a film. Between the potatoes and the butter, it'll create a film on the top. So if you'd like to avoid that, put your plastic wrap on there and just press it down into it. Store that in the refrigerator. It's good for at least 3 days. Past that, I can't tell you. And then when you want to go to reuse it, you just throw it on the stove, heat it up, and then enjoy. If it's a little too thick, because it will thicken up, so if it gets too thick, just add, you know, a little bit of milk to it, give it a stir, heat that up, and you are good to go. And you enjoy your potato soup. Alright, so I'm going to turn the camera on pause for just, you know, a few minutes. And then I'll bring you back and let you see what it looks like in the bowl. Which I'm not really sure why, actually. But I guess just in cases. Alright, I'll be right back. So I've dipped out most, but I'm going to do one more spoon into this bowl. You can see it is nice and thick. Coats the spoon, or the ladle. And there you go. You can add to this a little bit of Parmesan cheese if you like, or if you have a bacon that you like, feel free to cook some of that up, crumble it up and put it on top. And like I said, I hope you make this and I hope you enjoy it. And if you don't, then as always, I really hope that you find the recipe that's right for you out there. And have a wonderful evening.